This is Carolina Business Review. Major support provided by Colonial Life, providing benefits to employees to help them protect their families, their finances, and their futures. High Point University, the premier life skills university focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Community matters and business issues still drive our day-to-day work and lifestyle discussions and lifestyles, of course, but as we get closer to beach weather, more and more people are looking forward to that and, in fact, almost checking out. Welcome again to the most widely watched and longest-running program on Carolina business, policy, and public affairs. Seen every week across North and South Carolina for more than 30 years. Thank you for supporting this dialogue. In a moment, what are those issues that really still matter right now? And later, North Carolina State Auditor Beth Wood will join us, and we start right now.
Major funding also by Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, and Martin Marietta, a leading provider of natural resource-based building materials, providing the foundation on which our communities improve and grow. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Matt Martin of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, Karen Coltrane from the Children's Museum of the Lowcountry, and special guest, Beth Wood, North Carolina State Auditor.
Hello and welcome to our program. So do you get the sense, Matt, that families are already kind of checking out now the following spring break and looking for the summer and want to get out of work? Is that feeling going on?
I think it's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Beach vacations are not far away, especially for those of us that have college kids.
Yes. Carrie, same thing? I mean, you're in the Lowcountry. You're down in it.
Yeah, we are. Spring break was rocking at the Children's Museum, so there were a lot of people from South Carolina, but from all over that were in town for it.
Are you surprised to see the kind of crowds this early in the season? I know Charleston just has that anyway going on.
We're busy all the time.
But down on the beach like Folly or Isle of Palms or Sullivan's?
Yeah, I was actually out on Sullivan's early in the morning Saturday recently because the dogs get to run around, and we got a Yorkie that can't walk a block in town, but he seems to be able to run 2 miles on the beach, and there were a ton of people out there.
So Matt, let's start. So broad economy. Are you expecting a recession this year?
I think it's going to be a close call. So I think it'll be a mild one if we have one. But there are some big risks out there that could totally throw that off. We still have a fiscal budget ceiling issue to deal with.
Right.
We don't know if there are any other shoes to drop in the banking crisis. If none of those things materialize, I think we have a decent chance of avoiding a recession.
Now, not to press you on this. And also, let me make mention of this, that the date of this program that is being recorded is well in front of the Federal Open Market Committee's window that Fed officials, including Dr. Martin, cannot discuss things. So the date of this program is important, and I just wanted to make mention of that. But is the Fed still on edge is my term, but are you wary about the health of the banking system in the U.S.? I thought that was an anomaly and pretty much behind us.
So as things sit right now, it seems fairly calm, right? We had a couple of bank failures. There are concerns out there. The one that I hear mentioned most often is there's a bunch of commercial real estate mortgage-backed securities that need to reprice, for example. And depending on how that goes and how the underlying assets eventually get valued, somebody's going to be left probably holding a bill there, and there'll be a question on that. Mm-hmm. But as we sit here right now, unless there's something else to come, it looks okay.
Karen, broader economy, when you strategically plan, not just for the Lowcountry Children's Museum, but also just in general, what do you see in the next 6 months, 9 months?
I'm in Charleston, so it's a little unique there, but you can count the cranes, right? I mean, there's a lot of people coming into the area. I know that I talked to a major corporation down there the other day about supporting the museum, and the answer back was, we've got to hire over 1,000 people, can you help us with, visibility around that? We want young families to recognize, that we're here and that we're hiring. I mean, that's, something I didn't used to hear. So I think one of the challenges is how are we going to house and incorporate a lot of new people into the region.
So what was your answer? Can you help them?
I can help anybody who's willing to help the museum.
Yeah. Okay. So what does that look like? How do you get the word out for these families?
Well, it's interesting because we are actually looking at expanding with the Children's Museum of the Lowcountry. The board, we have probably the best board I think I've ever worked with. They really want to lean into the mission of serving across the Lowcountry. Like a lot of regions, we have disparate educational outcomes based on what zip code you're in the Lowcountry, and we want to be a part of helping to equalize some of those outcomes. So the board really thinks we need to be out in the maybe with different locations, certainly programming. I'll tell you a quick sad story. We had a trailer and a truck that we used to take mobile exhibits out in the country, and somebody stole the trailer out of North Charleston. So things are getting tough when you steal the Children's Museum's trailer, but that was sort of the harbinger of where we're headed out with so we're a museum certainly, and we serve families down in downtown Charleston and in the surrounding areas.
Charleston, Berkeley County.
Exactly, but we need to be out even further. So how do I help a corporation that's trying to hire out in those areas? Workforce development. I mean, a lot of these companies are taking the long view and realizing they need to invest in education even before children are getting into formal education.
Yeah, this is not new dialogue we've heard about workforce development, Matt. Is the pressure, it seems like, and let me make a statement and then ask you a question, it seems like the pressure on finding employees has abated to some degree. Is that pressure coming off now because there have been such widespread layoffs, for instance, in the tech industry?
It's coming off some, and it needs to come off a little further. So and sectorally it's a little different, right? You mentioned tech. With what's happened in the banking sector, I think that's probably cooled off. And so near term, it's cooling off. I think longer term, though, there's going to be pressure. We're in a different environment where I think labor is going to be a little scarcer than it's been the last 20 years. So there's a longer term challenge there.
So Karen, to take this a step further, what's the DNA connection between workforce as we know now and the development of workforce even at the pre-K level?
Well, we need kids when humans are born, they're all curious. It's why toddlers drive us crazy asking us why. I mean, it's an innate human drive to explore and learn. We need to hold on to that and inspire that at young ages so it continues throughout their education and they can connect what they're learning to school into how that's going to help them down the road. Because we need folks, in order to even do advanced manufacturing, you've got to have some basic understandings. And when you talk to folks in the community college system, and they're not seeing the kids come in career ready. So we want to get them when they're career curious and keep them interested to get to career ready.
The Fed for a long time, Matt, has had a financial literacy program in place. But do you go that early in the life cycle?
It's important. Think of it as compound interest, right? The deposit you make into human capital at that early age.
You're such a banker.
Yeah, well, it's true, and you get that jump start, and then it just compounds through all their learning experience through primary, secondary school, and post-secondary.
One of the big issues, and we're going to bring our guest on here in a second, one of the big issues is AI. It's everywhere now. You'd think it just kind of burst onto the scene and we'd never heard of it before. But alas, this is what we have. So is it the big disruptor? Karen, is this going to be the thing that the internet did to all of us decades ago?
Yeah, I'm an early adopter and I'm a fan. When you're in nonprofits, you're on a shoestring usually. And I have been using ChatGPT to great use because I get a first draft of anything I want written, and it's not bad. I'd much rather be an editor than staring at a blank page. So I'm a big fan. Writing grants. We have to do a lot of grant writing to get a few grants.
And you're using AI to do grant writing in the initial stages?
Daggone right I am. It's like a Google search on speed. It just does it.
Have you had a successful cycle of using AI and winning a grant?
Actually, I have.
You say that like you're surprised.
Yeah, no, I had to stop and think because the time I just started, getting involved with it probably December, January. Okay. But yeah, AI has written a first draft for me that I've been able to get funded.
So, Matt, the central bank and AI. I know how the central bank has kind of unfolded and not kind of, but watched cryptocurrency and taken their time, appropriately so. Does the Fed have a role in being an overlord in whatever adoption of AI looks like in a structured environment?
Yeah, it's a good question. They're probably in the bank supervision role. There's probably some role because you've got outside vendors and that always presents risks and that sort of thing. But I think we're going to be like the rest of any employers. It's going to affect how we do work. We write lots of reports and do stuff like that. So eventually we'll move along as well.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our guest is going to come on in just a moment. Before we do that, coming up on this program, speaking of Charleston, Dr. Patrick Cawley is the Chief Executive Officer of Medical University of South Carolina, better known as MUSC. Of course, headquartered in the Lowcountry. We will have Dr. Pat Cawley coming on. And also Kent Masters from Albemarle Corp. First time for this CEO, but not new for the Albemarle Corp in the Carolinas, and we will be hosting he as well. What stands in stark contrast for our guest is she was accused of a Class 2 traffic hit and run charge in December of last year. But what really stood out at the issue of hand is here is someone who made a career, is in her agency is generally thought of as the tax watchdog, but also there's specific accountability and transparency. Joining us now is North Carolina State Auditor Beth Wood. Your Honor, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you for joining us. Let's go back to March of this year, madam, and you pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor of a hit and run in December. I want to come to, now that that has been settled in the court, and we're not interested in relitigating or reprosecuting anything, but for you personally, you spent time with Harlan Boyles in the Treasurer's office. You built this agency, the Auditor's agency, to be almost unreproachable about accountability. For you, how did that event, did it undermine your personal confidence? Did it undermine your sense of leading this big organization that you built?
Absolutely not. I am disappointed in the decision I made in less than 60 seconds that evening. I am so disappointed in myself, but I have not let this issue define me. I am held up as an example for accountability. So what I've absolutely done is accepted accountability for my mistake, both personally with the charges, financially, paying for the damages, but no, it has not undermined my confidence in the job I have done in the last 14 years, or that I will do for the next 2 or 6 if I get reelected. But again, I'm human. I made a mistake, but I have not let it define me and undermine my confidence in my ability to do that job and lead that agency to perform irrefutable. And again, the big issue is accountability. Many citizens will be okay with the accountability for what happens in state government that we find in our findings and our audits. If people step up and say, yes, this is what happened and I'm going to fix it. And that's exactly what I did in my accident. Yes, this is what happened and I fixed everything that was broken.
How did you tease out, how did you chin out the voices of credible criticism and the ones that were just not lunatic fringe, but frivolous? How did you listen to the right voices around making any decision you made in all of this?
I prayed, and I basically, again, in a split second, made a decision, and it was a wrong decision. And again, I have just worked through what was the right thing to do, how to handle it, accept responsibility, accountability, and then just move forward, leading one of the best state audit shops in the nation.
Matt, question?
So we're sitting in a great economy. North Carolina's got this great credit rating, and the budget seems pretty flush, both with tax revenue and with federal programs. From your perspective, though, are there risks out there? What are they? Or what are the things we should be watching out for going forward?
Depends on from what aspect you're talking about, either publicly or within state government. Within state government, we have one of the poorest run IT shops. Information technology is just never been at the forefront. And as we talked about, you've got AI. There's just a tremendous amount of huge data, big data, that we could be gleaning so much from and understanding, and yet we can't get our hands on the data reliable and accurate to be able to make these decisions, to be able to look at the state. From the public side, we've got a lot of local governments that are in financial trouble. They don't have the staff or the talent, if you will, to manage their finances, and yet they're getting a tremendous amount of COVID emergency release type money, and not being able to handle it. And today it's not only about spending it on the right thing, but making sure that you've got the metrics there to ensure that for every dollar you spent, you got everything you should out of it. And that's where, both as a state government and local government, where we are failing, we got to sort of down pat on what to spend the money on and keep the bad actors out, but making sure that we are running the metrics to ensure that for every dollar we spend, every person that sits in a seat, every man hour they work, are we getting everything we can out of it? And the answer to that is a resounding no.
Karen?
I'm going to shift a little bit, because in children's museums and working with young children, representation is very important. Young people, particularly women and people of color, it helps to see someone above in a leadership position who looks like them. You never had that. You broke through, and I'm really curious about, as you reflect now back on a whole career, what was it about you that could do that, and how do you feel about it?
It's exactly what you said earlier on. I had wonderful parents. We were poor. I didn't know it. We were so happy. I didn't know we were poor until I was in high school, and I looked back and I thought, dang, we were poor. And my father always told all four of us we could be anything we chose to be. I believed him. I mean, he was just this honorable, just this wonderful person. And I remember he had a heart attack. I was in my late 20s, and I remember him, and he was a farmer, so he was laying on these white sheets, all tanned, you know. And I remember looking, he was asleep, and he woke up and he looked at me and he said, Bessie, that was his pet name for me. Bessie, what are you looking at? And I said, Dad, I'm sitting here thinking that I have never seen you cheat a man. I've never seen you mistreat a person. I've never seen you hurt anybody in all my years. And he started crying. But again, and I'm gonna tell you, when I went off to college, this farm girl had been set free. She had been set free. But I always kept thinking about the choices I made, what it would do to my father if it was the wrong one. I remember skipping school, and my dad came in and he said, Beth, he said, I have taught you everything I know to teach you. He said, I don't know what else to do. I failed you. And I'm thinking, beat me, spank me, but Lord, don't tell me that you're disappointed in me and that I've failed you. Going back to what you said, I am where I am today because my father told me I could be anything I chose to be. Even growing up poor, I could be anything I chose to be.
Your office already does a lot of the oversight and accountability around spending in general, and it's certainly Medicaid spending has been part of that. With the new era, the General Assembly has agreed to take Medicaid funding. Does that make it better, worse, harder, easier? All of the cash that will be flowing through North Carolina now to people, is that a harder deal for you?
In essence, it's just a shift of the risk. When everybody was spending Medicaid money, the doctors, the dentists, the in-home health care providers, didn't matter, the nursing homes, you filed a claim and you got paid. And you had to make sure that they didn't overbill or they weren't billing for things they didn't do and that kind of thing. The shift now, theoretically, is better because now you've got someone looking after somebody's health care, so that will help them make sure they're going to the doctor, getting their regular checkups, making sure that they're getting the care that they need so that they don't end up in the emergency room with really bad situation. However, the risk now is, it reminds me sort of like the HMOs we had. So because we're giving you a certain amount of money every month, these MCOs, we're giving you a certain amount of month for every person that's on Medicaid. You take all this money and you decide when they go to the doctor, do they go to the doctor, what tests they have. For every dollar you don't spend, it's profit. So now the risk is, are people not getting the medical care they need because for every dollar not spent? So there was risk on the first hand that people were spending the money and it was people on Medicaid that shouldn't be, or that the doctors, the dentists, in-home health care providers were not charging like they should. Now we're giving a per member per month fee to these managed care organizations. They're supposed to be managing the care of all these vulnerable people who can't manage their own care. Now, are they really providing the care they need and deserve, or are they holding any of it back because it adds to their bottom line?
I don't want to open this can of worms, and I say it that way, Madam Auditor, because it's something the Treasurer's Office in North Carolina has taken on about the transparency bill cost. But does that make transparency a harder issue then with the inflow of this kind of money?
It doesn't. It will depend on the managed care organizations. Okay. Will I be able to get in there and look at their records and make sure that if Matt was supposed to go get an MRI, did he? And so will I be able to get in and look at the records? And because these last grouping, these last several that are coming in to manage our care of our most vulnerable, they're for-profit organizations. So making sure that the laws are there, that the state auditor's office can get in and take a look at what should be offered, what should be done, and what is being done.
Okay, Matt.
So I've been mulling over part of your response to my first question around local government and some of the issues there. And I'm thinking about our smaller town and more rural communities. What's the way forward? Because where we sit now, the state as a whole is doing great economically, but it's uneven across the state. But there's this opportunity, right? COVID allowed for some remote work, but for that to stick over the long term, you need the local institutions to have the right support, you need the infrastructure, and it seems like there's funding and some resources there, but it's got to be deployed in the right way.
You're absolutely right, and I think our governor's done a great job of getting the broadband money out there for the internet connections. And I'm going to say that because my sister lives in Jones County, and she had a bout with cancer. I went and stayed with her after she had some of the chemotherapy. Initially, when I stayed with her, I'd have to drive into Trenton, North Carolina, sit in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot and work for 2 or 3 hours. Before she finished all of her treatments, I was now able to work from her home because they have the internet connection. So that is becoming a wonderful thing. The problem we're having is really the talent within these small communities to be able to account for and budget for and financially handle the monies that are coming in at such a great magnitude. And so that's really becoming an issue. But as I was telling Chris earlier, we're working on some, with the State Treasurer's Office, working on some, a big issue is a lot of these smaller communities not getting their annual audits done. And we found a city, Spring Lake, it's public, hadn't had their audit done in 3 years, and an accounting clerk embezzled $474,000. Had they had that annual audit done, it would have been caught long before that much money went missing. But there wasn't the talent, the city manager, the finance officer, there wasn't the talent there to make sure this did not happen. So this is where we're at risk. But what's happening now, there's a bill in the General Assembly that if you haven't turned in your annual audit to the Local Government Commission, which is required in law, within 12 months of year end, the state will withhold part of your sales tax revenue.
They're still buying a lot of time. I mean, that's a year in arrears that they're buying, right?
But for Spring Lake, it was over 3. So at least, we're forcing the issue 2 years earlier. than it happened at Spring Lake.
Was any of that, can you claw back any of those funds, or they're gone?
Not a dime. She is in prison for felony accounts and has filed bankruptcy 3 times in her lifetime. So that town will not see 1 dime of the money that was taken.
Yeah. We are out of time, so Madam Auditor, thank you for taking time. Welcome to the program. Sorry it's taken us probably as long as you've been in office to have you on this program, but thank you for joining us, and best of luck going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the program, Karen. Welcome back to the Carolinas. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Matt, always nice to have you, sir.
Always a
Thank you for
pleasure.
your leadership. Thank you for watching our program. If you have any questions or comments, carolinabusinessreview.org. I know that's not very creative, but go anyway and watch a program. Until next week, I'm Chris William. Good night.
Gratefully acknowledging support by Martin Marietta, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, Sunoco, High Point University, Colonial Life, and by viewers like you. Thank you. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.org.